Everyone thinks their best friend would never betray them. But what if your closest ally became the reason your world fell apart? My name is Alex, and this is not just a story about betrayal. It's about revenge. Calculated, patient, cold. I live in Chicago, a city that never really sleeps. The noise, the lights, the chaos, it suits me. Because when you've worked as hard as I have, the silence can be too loud. By day, I'm a marketing lead at a fast-growing tech company called Innovative Tech. 5 years of sweat, endless deadlines, and missed birthdays brought me here. I wasn't handed anything. I built it all, brick by brick. But every climb is easier with a friend by your side. And for me, that was Sophie. We met in college. 2 broke girls trying to survive late-night projects and vending machine dinners. She had the kind of energy that drew people in. Confident, funny, magnetic. I was the planner, the thinker. Together we balanced each other out. And when graduation came, fate placed us in the same company. From that day on, we were inseparable. At work, people called us the duo. We stayed late together. We brainstormed, laughed, and shared secrets. We celebrated every win and mourned every failure. I trusted her like a sister. But the thing about trust is, it's like glass. Once it cracks, it never really goes back to the way it was. It started with little things. Whispers in meetings. Compliments that had hidden meanings. "Oh, Alex is great, but she can be a bit rigid," Sophie would joke. Or, "I helped Alex polish her report last night. I just wanted to make sure it was perfect." People laughed. Laughed too. But deep down I felt something shift. She began staying late after hours. Not with me, but with our boss, Mr. Jacobs. I told myself it was nothing. She was ambitious. Maybe she was just trying to learn. Maybe I was being paranoid. But paranoia becomes intuition when the truth starts to show its face. One Thursday evening, the office was nearly empty. The hum of the printers. The clicking of my keyboard. I was finalizing a major presentation. The biggest of my career. A deal that could secure my promotion. As I walked toward the conference room to check the projector, I heard voices. Faint, but familiar. Mr. Jacobs. And Sophie. "I'm just saying, Sophie," he said. "If you take the lead on this presentation, I'm sure Alex won't mind stepping aside. You've got that natural charm." My heart stopped. Sophie's voice came next. Confident. "Don't worry, I'm ready to take it from here. It'll be my chance to shine. And Alex doesn't need to know about it." I froze at the door. Every word sliced through me like glass. This wasn't ambition. This was betrayal. I wanted to burst in. To scream. To call her out for every fake smile, every late-night coffee, every lie. But I didn't. Couldn't. Instead I walked away. Quietly. Slowly. Heart pounding. And that was the night I changed. That was the night I realized that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people you'd take a bullet for. Have you ever trusted someone so completely, only to find out they were using that trust against you? What would you have done in my shoes? The next morning I walked into the office with a smile. I greeted Sophie like nothing had happened. Because if there's one thing I learned that night, it's that silence can be a weapon. She thought she'd won. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. And from that moment I started to plan. The days that followed felt like walking through smoke. I could see everything, but nothing felt real. Sophie laughed louder than usual. She started dressing sharper, speaking with more authority. Every time Mr. Jacobs passed by, she found a reason to be near him. Compliment here. Shared smile there. And me. Became invisible. In meetings she took the lead. She'd use my ideas, twist them slightly, and make them sound like her own. Everyone clapped. Mr. Jacobs praised her initiative. And I sat there, smiling politely, while my stomach churned with quiet fury. But I stayed silent. Because silence is underestimated. Gives you time to think. Plan. To watch people dig their own graves. I started taking notes. Not on paper. In my head. Every word she said. every mistake she made, every late-night meeting with Mr. Jacobs. The office wasn't just my workplace anymore. It was my battlefield. And Sophie. She had no idea I was watching her every move. One night, while finishing a client report, I noticed something strange. An expense report with Sophie's name on it, filed twice. Same date, same client, different amounts. Didn't make sense. Unless she was double charging. My heartbeat quickened. If Sophie was capable of stealing credit, maybe she was capable of stealing money too. I didn't say a word. Instead, I started gathering small pieces, whispers from coworkers, copies of emails, late-night screen logs. First, it was just suspicion. But suspicion has a way of leading to truth. Weeks passed, and the big presentation she'd stolen finally approached. The tension in the air was thick. Everyone could feel it. Sophie was glowing, confident, smug. She kept talking about how she'd worked day and night on this project. Day and night. Funny. Because I was the one who stayed until dawn every night building it. But still I said nothing. I just smiled. Because revenge works best when your enemy doesn't know it's coming. One evening she left her office door open. Her laptop screen was on. And curiosity is a dangerous thing. I walked in. No one else was around. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. On her desk a flash drive, labeled Client Data, Private. I shouldn't have touched it, but I did. I copied the files onto my drive and slipped out. When I opened them later that night I froze. It wasn't client data. It was confidential company documents, information that shouldn't have left our system. And the email thread attached to it told me everything I needed to know. Sophie wasn't just taking credit for my work. She was selling company secrets to a rival firm. The proof was right there. Emails between her and a competitor, secret transactions, and promises of bonuses for information. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't ambition. This was treason. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. The girl I once called my best friend was a traitor. I could have exposed her right then. I could have marched into Mr. Jacobs' office and ended it all. But I didn't. Because this was bigger than her. If she was sending those files, then Mr. Jacobs had to know something. And if he didn't, then I was about to expose the kind of scandal that could burn the entire company to the ground. So I waited. Listen. Every smile she gave me, every compliment, every fake laugh. It all felt heavier now, like poison wrapped in silk. I wasn't the same Alex anymore. The quiet, trusting woman who believed hard work was enough. That version of me was gone. This new me, she understood power. She understood patience. And she understood one thing better than anyone else in that office. That sometimes, revenge isn't about anger. It's about balance. And when the scales finally tip, it's beautiful to watch. The night before Sophie's big presentation, I barely slept. Not from nerves, but from anticipation. I had everything I needed, every email, every transaction, every secret. And yet I didn't rush. Revenge isn't about striking fast. It's about striking right. The next morning, the office buzzed like a hive. Everyone was preparing for the pitch, the one that could bring in millions. Sophie floated through the room like she owned it. A new outfit, new perfume, a smile so wide it almost hurt to look at. She looked at me and said, "You nervous for today? Big day for us." Her tone was sweet. Too sweet. Smiled back. "Not at all, sophomore. I trust you'll do great." My voice was steady, controlled. It had come. Inside I was already counting down the minutes. When the meeting began, the boardroom filled with the usual buzz of small talk and tension. Mr. Jacobs sat at the head of the table, proud and smug. To him, Sophie was the golden employee. To me, she was a ticking time bomb. Sophie began her presentation. Her voice was confident, her movements rehearsed. Slide after slide, she spoke about her ideas, my strategies. And the more she talked, the more the board nodded in approval. I let her have her moment, because I knew what was coming. Halfway through, I reached for my phone. Few taps, single click, and an email, carefully drafted and scheduled, was sent. It wasn't just to Mr. Jacobs. It was to the entire board. Every email she sent to the competitor, every bank transaction, every proof of her betrayal. The projector flickered. Mr. Jacobs frowned at his tablet. Whispers spread across the room. Sophie kept talking, unaware of the storm brewing around her. Then a silence. Mr. Jacobs' voice broke the air. "Sophie," he said slowly, "what exactly is this?" She turned confused. "What do you mean?" He held up his tablet. Her face drained of color. The room filled with murmurs. One by one, the executives opened their devices. Her emails, her transactions, all projected onto the big screen. I sat back calm and quiet. And then, I met her eyes. She looked at me, desperate, terrified, and she knew. She knew I'd done it. Her voice cracked. "Alex, you." I raised a finger to my lips. Simple gesture. "Shoo," I whispered. "You'll want to save your breath." Security entered. Mr. Jacobs shouted orders. The boardroom erupted into chaos. And I just watched. It was over in minutes. Her career, her lies, her reputation. When she was escorted out, she looked back at me one last time. And in that moment, I saw something I hadn't expected. Not hatred, not anger, just realization that she had chosen the wrong person to betray. The meeting ended early. People whispered. No one met my eyes. But I didn't care, because in that silence was victory. I returned to my desk, collected my things, and walked out into the cool Chicago air. For the first time in months I could breathe. One, or so I thought. But revenge, it has layers. And sometimes the moment you think you've won, that's when the real game begins. That night my phone buzzed. Message. No name. No number. It read, "You made a powerful enemy today." I stared at it for a long time. The words pulsed on my screen. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over. For a few days everything felt quiet. Too quiet. Sophie was gone. Fired. Blacklisted. Her name was whispered through the halls like a curse. And me. I became the golden girl. Mr. Jacobs called me into his office, congratulated me for my diligence. He said I had a bright future with the company. He smiled. But there was something in that smile I couldn't read. I should have felt proud. But instead, felt watched. Every time I entered the office, conversations stopped. Emails slowed down. People whispered behind closed doors. And Mr. Jacobs' secretary, she avoided eye contact. Something was off. One evening, as I was shutting down my computer, I noticed something strange. My access to certain files had been revoked. Projects I had worked on, gone from my system. Emails missing. Entire threads deleted. Then another message came. Same unknown number. "Did you think you were the only one collecting secrets?" My blood ran cold. I looked around the office. Empty, silent, but it felt like someone was watching me. The next morning, rumors started spreading. That I had helped Sophie. That I was in on it. Someone had been feeding information to the board, twisting the story. Mr. Jacobs called me in again. His tone was colder this time. He asked questions I didn't expect. About the files. About my late nights. About why I had access to Sophie's data in the first place. I explained everything. How I found the proof, how I exposed her. But the look in his eyes. It wasn't trust. It was calculation. That's when I realized something I should have known from the beginning. Sophie didn't act alone. She couldn't have. Someone higher up had been part of it. And now that she was gone, they needed someone else to take the fall. Me. That night I went home and tore through my apartment. Checking my laptop, my emails, everything. Someone had been inside my system. There were new logins from unknown locations. Files had been copied. My entire folder on Sophie gone. The message came again. "Game's not over, Alex." I wanted to scream. But I didn't. because screaming wouldn't save me. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, stared out my window at the city lights, and whispered to myself, "Fine. If it's a game you want, it's a game you'll get." The next morning I walked into the office with my head high. They wanted to play dirty. So be it. I started digging again, deeper this time. Into Mr. Jacobs' files. Into the company's financials. And what I found changed everything. Money transfers. Hidden accounts. A pattern that went back years. Sophie was just a pawn. The real thief was sitting in that corner office with a smile that could hide 1,000 sins. I sat back in my chair, heartbeat steady. So that's what this was. Cover-up. They needed a scapegoat, and Sophie was disposable. Now I was next. But I wasn't going down quietly. Because if Sophie taught me anything, it's that betrayal doesn't end with one person. Spreads. It infects. And when the infection reaches the top, you burn the whole system down. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sophie's face. Her smirk when she thought she'd won. Her shock when I exposed her. And now, her revenge echoing through my phone screen. But this wasn't about Sophie anymore. This was about the people pulling the strings. The ones who thought they could bury me. By morning I was calm. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. I walked into the office like nothing was wrong. Smiled at the receptionist. Grabbed a cup of coffee. And logged into my system from a secure drive I'd set up overnight. They thought I didn't have backups. But I had everything. Every file. Every message. Every piece of evidence Sophie had ever sent. And the ones that led straight to Mr. Jacobs. The trick wasn't exposing the truth. It was timing it. Because in revenge, timing is everything. I started laying the groundwork. Slowly, quietly. Whispering to the right people. Leaking harmless information that made Jacobs nervous. Just enough to make him paranoid. When powerful men get scared, they make mistakes. And I needed him to make a big one. It didn't take long. He started calling emergency meetings. Sending emails at odd hours. Trying to find the mole. The irony made me smile. Meanwhile, I befriended someone from the IT department. A quiet guy named Marcus. Observant. Didn't talk much, which was perfect. He'd been overlooked for years, just like me. And people who are overlooked, they notice everything. With his help, I got into the system logs. And there it was. The connection between Mr. Jacobs and an offshore firm. Tied to our biggest competitor. The same firm Sophie had been sending information to. The puzzle clicked into place. She wasn't selling company secrets for herself. She was ordered to, by him. He had used her ambition, her greed, her need for approval. And when the heat turned up, he tossed her to the wolves. And now he was trying to do the same to me. I sat there, staring at the screen, my reflection glowing in the monitor light. This was bigger than a betrayal. This was corporate warfare. And I wasn't just going to survive it. I was going to win. The next few days, I started building what I called the mirror. A folder of evidence that would reflect every lie, every stolen dollar, every manipulation right back at him. I set it to automatically upload to a private server, one only I could access. And I wrote a timed email, encrypted and ready to send to the board. But there was one last piece missing. Confession. Mr. Jacobs was too smart to write one. But I knew his weakness, pride. If I could make him feel untouchable, he'd say more than he should. So I set the stage. Fake offer letter. A fabricated investor proposal. And a casual accidental meeting invite sent to his inbox. Everything looked official, even the company logo, the email chain. It was bait, and I knew he'd take it. When he arrived, he smiled that smug, confident smile. I played my part perfectly. The nervous employee begging for a second chance, eager to prove my loyalty. He leaned back, chuckled, and said something that sealed his fate. "You did well taking Sophie down. She was getting too sloppy. But remember, Alex, loyalty has its rewards, and its price." The recording light blinked quietly in my pocket. He kept talking, bragging, confessing without even realizing it. And by the time he left my office, I had enough to destroy him, and anyone protecting him. That night, I opened a new message to the board, attached every file, every log, every recording, and then I stopped, because something in me hesitated. Was this revenge? Or justice? Was I becoming the same kind of person I'd sworn to expose? I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time, my finger hovering over the send button, and then pressed it. The moment the email left my outbox, I felt it, a strange mix of fear and power. Because when you expose corruption, you don't just break a system. You become the storm that tears it apart. The next morning, I walked into the office like nothing happened. Just another Tuesday. Another day in the glass tower of lies. But beneath the calm surface, I could feel it. Something had shifted. Phones were ringing non-stop. Doors slamming. Voices raised in panic. Everyone was whispering, but no one was saying why. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop and waited. Then came the message from the board. Mandatory meeting. Conference room 1. Immediate attendance required. I took a deep breath and stood. This was it. When I entered the room, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Executives, lawyers, and at the head of the table, Mr. Jacobs. He looked pale, hands clenched, eyes darting around the room like a cornered predator. The board chair cleared her throat. She looked straight at him. Mr. Jacobs, we've received some serious allegations backed with evidence. Financial misappropriation, data leaks, and bribery. The room fell silent. You could hear the sound of his breath hitch. He turned toward me. For a moment, I thought he was going to deny everything. But then he smiled. You think you've won, don't you, Alex? He said softly. That same calm, venomous voice. But you have no idea what you've started. The board chair interrupted sharply. Mr. Jacobs, this meeting isn't about Alex. It's about you. Then the files were played. The recordings. The emails. His voice. His own words echoing through the speakers. Every secret laid bare. Every lie shattered in front of his own team. He tried to talk his way out of it, but the evidence was undeniable. By the time the meeting ended, his position was terminated, effective immediately. Security escorted him out, silent and red-faced. The once untouchable man reduced to a ghost in a suit. I stood there, watching as the glass doors closed behind him. No satisfaction, no applause, just quiet. Because revenge doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like silence after a storm. But the storm wasn't over. Later that night I received another email. This one anonymous. No subject, no signature, just a single line. You exposed him, but the network runs deeper. Froze. The words glowed against the dark screen like a threat. For a moment I thought it was a bluff. Until I clicked the attachment. It was a list. Payments. Every transaction that tied Jacobs to something far bigger. A corporate ring that extended beyond our company. And at the bottom of that list, name. They had set me up long before I even knew there was a game. Suddenly everything clicked. The revoked file access. The missing emails. The anonymous messages. They weren't random. They were part of a cleanup operation. To erase anyone who could expose the truth. I wasn't the hero in this story. I was a loose end. So I did the only thing left to do. Copied the entire folder. Encrypted it. And uploaded it to a secure cloud drive. If anything happened to me, the truth would go public. Then I packed up my things, deleted every trace of my presence from the office network, and walked out of that building for the last time. As I stepped into the night, rain started to fall. Cold, relentless. Cleansing. I didn't look back. Because behind me, that company was already burning. Not in flames, but in reputation. The scandal hit the media within hours. Corporate corruption scandal rocks innovative tech. Headlines everywhere. And buried within those stories was a single line. A whistleblower known only as Alex has exposed one of the biggest corporate cover-ups in recent years. I smiled faintly. They didn't know who I really was. And that was exactly how I wanted it. Because revenge isn't just about making them pay. It's about walking away free, while they drown in the mess they created. After the scandal broke, I disappeared. No goodbyes. No explanations. Just gone. I moved out of the city within a week. New apartment. New phone. New name on the lease. I thought it was over. But peace doesn't come easy. Not when you've burned down an empire. First it was quiet. I'd wake up, make coffee, stare at the skyline, and tell myself I'd finally won. But the quiet started to feel wrong. Too heavy. Too sharp. Like silence that watches you. Then the calls started. Blocked numbers. Lines. Sometimes breathing. I'd hang up, but they'd call again. Every night. Every time I tried to forget. One evening I got an email from an unknown address. No message. Just a video attachment. It was footage from my apartment security camera. A figure standing outside my door. Watching. 4 hours. I couldn't breathe. My pulse pounded in my ears as I replayed it again and again. It wasn't Sophie. It wasn't Jacobs. It was someone else. Someone who wanted me to know I wasn't safe. The next morning, a small black envelope was slipped under my door. Inside was a single flash drive. And a note that said, "You think you ended it. You just opened the next chapter." I hesitated before plugging it into my laptop. My hands were shaking. The screen flickered to life. And there it was. A recording of Sophie. But this time she wasn't crying. If you're watching this, it means I've already moved on. I'm not angry. Not anymore. In fact, I should thank you. Because you didn't just take me down, you took him down too. You cleared the path for me. Froze. Her tone wasn't hateful. It was confident. Controlled. Like someone who had found power again. She leaned closer to the camera. I always said you were the smart one. But tell me, Alex. Did you really think I'd go down without a plan? The screen went black. I sat there in stunned silence, my heart hammering. It couldn't be. Sophie was supposed to be gone. Disgraced, finished. But somehow she'd found her way back. A week later, a new company launched. Bleak. Ambitious. Well-funded. The founder's name was Williams. It was her. Rebrand. A resurrection. And the worst part. Half the clients from innovative tech had already moved to her firm. It was like she'd predicted the collapse. Like she'd orchestrated it from the start. For the first time since this all began, I didn't know who was playing who anymore. Was I the Avenger? Or just another pawn in her revenge? I shut my laptop and sat in the dark, the city lights flickering through the window, and realized something I'd been too proud to admit. This wasn't over. Not even close. Because when two people betray each other, there's never a winner. Only survivors. For days I couldn't think straight. Every headline, every business article, every LinkedIn post, her name was there. Williams. Sophie Williams. The woman I'd exposed. The woman who'd risen from the ashes I thought I left her in. She had turned herself into a brand. A survivor. A visionary. The media called her the phoenix of tech. And I was the ghost she left behind. But ghosts have one advantage. They can move in the shadows. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was loud. And I needed silence. Precision. Patience. So I started watching her. Not in person, no, I'd learned my lesson. Digitally. Quietly. I built profiles, created aliases, joined her company's online forums. She was growing fast. Too fast. Something wasn't adding up. Late one night I found it. A small detail buried in a press release. A list of new investors. And one of those investors was an offshore firm. The same one that had funded Jacob's dirty deals. That's when it hit me. She hadn't escaped the game. She'd inherited it. Sophie hadn't built her empire alone. She had partnered with the same people who'd ruined both of us. She was their new face. Their new puppet. I sat there staring at my screen, and felt that same cold calm I'd felt the day I exposed Jacob's fame. If she wanted to play queen, I'd remind her how easily queens can fall. I reached out to Marcus again, the IT guy who had helped me months ago. He still owed me a favor. And favors in the digital world can be powerful weapons. Together, we infiltrated her company's network. Not to steal, not to destroy, just to see, to understand how deep it went. What we found made my stomach twist. Sophie's company wasn't just thriving. It was laundering money through dummy contracts tied to that same offshore network. It was a mirror image of what Jacobs had done. The same crimes, just dressed up in better PR. She hadn't changed. She'd evolved. So I made a choice. No confrontation. No drama. Just cold, quiet exposure. I packaged the evidence neatly. Anonymous reports. Encrypted files. Copies sent to 3 independent journalists. And one final folder. Addressed directly to Sophie. I didn't write much. Just one line. Round 2 is over. You taught me well. Then I pressed send. The fallout was instant. By morning, her investors had frozen their accounts. By noon, her company's website was down. By nightfall, her name was trending again. But this time for all the wrong reasons. Rising tech CEO under investigation for fraud and money laundering. The same words that once destroyed her career were now back to finish the job. I watched it unfold quietly from my apartment, coffee in hand, city lights flickering outside. No gloating, no laughter, just calm. Because I finally understood. Revenge isn't about who falls the hardest. It's about who walks away last. I shut my laptop, exhaled, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace is fragile. Because just as I was about to close my eyes, my phone buzzed. New message. No name. No number. Just 3 words. Nice move, Alex. Froze. My reflection stared back from the dark screen. And for the first time, I wondered if the game would ever truly end. Silence. That's what followed the chaos. Days went by. And for once, nobody was talking about me. Or Sophie. Or Jacobs. The headlines faded. The noise stopped. And in that silence, found something strange. Freedom. I started going for long walks again. No disguises. No hiding. Just me, the city breeze. And the sound of my footsteps. 'Twas odd. The world looked the same. But I was different. Every betrayal. Every sleepless night. Every plan and counterplan. They had carved something into me. Not bitterness, but clarity. Because revenge. It isn't victory. It's revelation. Shows you who people truly are. And who you've become in the process. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, I sat at my window, watching the lights blink on across the city. I thought of Sophie, whether she was sitting somewhere just like this, staring at her own reflection, wondering how everything had slipped away. Part of me wanted to hate her, but another part, the part that still remembered our friendship, felt nothing. No joy, no sorrow, just a quiet acceptance. Some stories don't need happy endings. They just need closure. And I had mine. Packed my laptop away. Deleted the last of the files. Changed my number. And for the first time in years, I wasn't plotting my next move. I was just living. But before I could close that final chapter completely, I opened my camera one last time. And recorded a message. Not for Sophie. Not for Jacobs. But for anyone who's ever been betrayed. My name is Alex. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Never underestimate a quiet woman. She's not broken. She's reloading. Smiled. Stopped the recording. And sent it to my private archive. Then I turned off the lights. And let the darkness settle. 'Cause sometimes, the best revenge is peace. Hey you, yes, you watching right now. You've been with me through every twist, every betrayal, every moment of revenge. Tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. I love knowing how far my stories travel. And if you felt that chill, That satisfaction of karma served cold. Then don't forget. Subscribe to Revenge by Valerie right now. Because this is just one story. And trust me, the next one will cut even deeper.